And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at a game called Agra. Agra is a game with beautiful artwork by Tom Vasel. It's a big, grandiose Euro-style game from Quined Games. So when I saw this, my daughter, Melody, we looked at it like, wow, so many pieces, so much going on. A worker placement game, that's kind of our thing. So let's take a look, dive into the world of just this big, beautiful, gorgeous game. Okay, first of all, please do not use this video as a way to learn how to play the game. I'm going to give you some brief ideas of how it works, but not complete overviews because there's just too many rules to go through. But first of all, let's take a look at a player's board. So players are going to come with a bunch of workers. They're going to be placing these workers on the board to do the game. They also have 4 farmers. These farmers are going to be producing resources throughout the game. And for example, if I want to produce ginger at some point during the course of the game, the way I know how much ginger I'm going to get is I'll count the empty spaces. So there's 2 empty spaces between the farmers and the ginger. So I would get 2 ginger if I produce ginger. If I move the farmer away, now there's 3 spaces and I'm going to get 3 ginger, but if I do cotton, I'm going to get less cotton. Also, if you have a way to remove these boxes here, these crates, you'll have more spaces, which will give you more resources. Down here, you have a meditation track, which you'll be able to pay resources during the course of the game to move up, and it gives you points if you get it all the way to the end, just like removing these gives you points at the end of the game. But this meditation track, when you meditate with your workers, you will get more points per worker that you meditate with, or at least you have more workers you can get points with. And then over here is your favor section. Over the course of the game, you'll get a currency called favor. When that happens, you'll just take some of these tokens and put them here to show how much favor you have. And you'll be able to spend favor, like I can spend 2 favor to get a resource of my choice. I can if I have 4 favor, I can spend 3 of them to move on one of the tracks. And as the game goes by, you also have ways to get more tokens that will give you more things that you can do with your favor. And then down here it just tells you basically what you do on a turn. At the beginning of a player's turn, if they have workers on the board, they can lay them down and they'll get a certain number of meditation points depending on their track. They can use those meditation points to take a certain number of actions up here. And there's going to be various actions that you can do, like moving your farmer on the board, trading resources for other resources. And the last action that you take, so let's say I get rid of one of those squares on my farmer board, and it costs 2 meditation points, the last action you take will be covered up for the next player. So this sun will move around into different spots. So that's the first thing you'll do in your turn. The second thing that you will do in your turn is you will place a worker on the board. Now this is the meat of the game. There are several places to place your worker. You have 4 main spots to put a worker up here. And by the way, if there is another worker when you place your worker, that worker gets returned to their owner and they get a favor point, unless the worker is laid down, in which case it's returned to them, but they don't get the favor point. So when you go to each of these, you're going to be able to do different things. This will move you up on tracks and allows you to build a building. This guy allows you to deliver goods. This guy over here lets you trade goods. And each good on the board has a different cost to it. That's what the little flags all over the board are for. And you're able to change the rate of a good by a flag. So this one might now be worth 2 flags if I want to. And then this person over here lets you do a variety of things, like get rid of those crates, move your farmers, and things like that. You can also produce resources on the board. There are various buildings. 4 buildings are built at the beginning of the game. If I go here, I would get ginger equal to the empty spaces like I showed you earlier. And when that happens, I would put these here. As buildings get built, they will come off the board. You'll need a certain number of resources to often build buildings and get bonus tiles for doing so. And when you build a building, it's possible to move resources from one building to another building following these arrows. So this here, now I have this curry that we make, or later on it can be changed into dye, and then this dye can be moved later on over here to make cloth. And so you'll have resources moving around the board. And there's also a trader, which can give you benefits if you use that. There's a builder thing that's moving around the board too. These guys move kind of randomly with a die roll on different spots on the board. And as you move them around, you can get bonuses or build a building for free where they're at. Now, the point of the game is to deliver these goods. You're getting these resources and goods and delivering them. There's two places to do that. One is down here, where you will deliver them to these people here, which is going to give you a special ability or points. You'll flip it over, and you might have some special ability for the rest of the game. You know, like here you get a coin every time you deliver one of that, a cloth if you have the Portuguese trader. So there's different ones. These are going to be different per game. There's different groups, and you can only do level 1, but as time goes by, this boat will move farther down the river, changing some of the rules of the game and having more of these cards available to the point where, you know, that will end the game. You can also deliver them to this board over here. Now this board here has tracks on it, and you're trying to be the highest on these different tracks. You're going to be moving your tokens up on these tracks as the game goes by. You can also deliver single goods to the king himself, or down here, there's goods that need to be done at any particular time. So right now in the first column, there needs to be delivered a cotton. You can see that it needs these two. This one needs these two, and this one needs these two. If you're able to deliver those, you're going to get points or coins equal to what you have up here. Each person has a bag, and you'll be putting your coins in that bag, and that's how you're going to score points at the end of the game, whoever has the most coins. And that's pretty much it. Now, I know, again, there's more going on in the game, but what you're trying to do as the game goes by is you have 3 different things you're doing. At the beginning of the game, you're going to be trying to get the meditation points and use them to do different things. Then you're going to be taking your regular worker action on the board and possibly spending favor points to do some other sorts of actions. And then it goes to the next player, and this will continue on until the game ends. There's other rules in place as to what orders you can deliver there and how many can be delivered at a certain point. And when you get these cards, things are going to change, and how many goods you can deliver at a certain time. But hopefully that gives you enough of a synopsis so you can kind of have a feel for how the game works. The board itself is really beautiful. When you look around and you look at the buildings and all the background art and the different characters themselves, they give a really good flavor to the game. Really enjoy these, how the board looks. Now this thing here is a great centerpiece for the game, right? Anyone who walks by the table while you're playing it is going to like this. But I really dislike this component as a whole. These pieces themselves, it's hard to tell, but they have like a diagonal bottom to them, and all your pieces that you have, even the resources have that same diagonal bottom, because as you mark when you deliver an order, you're going to put them here. And that looks good. But you make any kind of mistake with this board, pieces fall over. We were so scared playing our games that we were taking pictures of where pieces were on the board, because it's really not hard for pieces to fall. If you say, well, you shouldn't be hitting your board like this, but I'm telling you, dropping a piece on the board, these things happen, and it's really easy for this to get messed up. Not to mention, it has a diagonal edge on it, so you're like, okay, I need to put it here. And just moving these up the board themselves, I mean, it's easy when you're doing that, but when you're trying to move it through other pieces, this was just, it felt awkward and unwieldy. Then the player boards themselves, I really enjoyed them, but they look good, but these little squares are really tiny and hard to move. And for some reason the game said to put all these resources in the middle here. Yeah, we abandoned that really quickly and just put them next to the board. Other than that, there's a lot of symbology. The game is full of tons of symbology. You're going to have to look up and see what all these different people do, because you're likely going to forget what they do. And again, there's just a lot going on. Even though the board is beautiful, it is fairly busy with all that symbology. So the components, for this game are stunning. You see all these pieces. There's so many pieces. But at the same time, the game's a little fragile when it comes to components, because it's easy to knock things over, and it's not always easy to figure out what's going on where. So the game, beautiful, but like I said, easy to knock stuff over. But what about the gameplay itself? And for me, the word that just kept coming to mind here was overwrought. I get what the game is trying to do. You are getting resources and you are delivering them. It's your typical gather resources and deliver them with worker placement. But there was so much going on, and the payoff does not feel equal to what is going on. We especially were not pleased that there were 3 different phases with 3 different currencies. I mean, not 3 different phases, but 3 different currencies going on in the game. You have your favor points, you have your meditation points, and then you just have the goods. And some of these are doing the same action, and so you're sitting there going, okay, I can knock this guy, I already got a meditation point, but if I don't knock him over and someone goes to that spot, I'll get him back, which will then give me a favor point. And which is better, using the meditation point now or the favor points later? And I'm doing the same actions here, and you're doing a lot. You're getting these, and then you move them here, and then you move them here, and then you spend them to go here, and you trade them for these, and then you go here to deliver to this guy. And it just felt like a whole lot of work, but not a whole lot of fun. It also isn't the easiest game to grok, so I'll give you that. You know, there's just a lot going on in it, and moving and looking at all the icons, and if you build something, you get a bonus tile, and you get money, and then you can always spend 2 coins to do something else in your turn, and that's 2 victory points, and is it worth it? And so, some people are watching this video right now saying, well, it's a heavier game, Vasel, and you're not supposed to be playing these heavy games. But I played this game with some people who like heavy games, right? And they kind of agreed with me, because when a game is heavier like this, that's fine, I'm not opposed to heavy games at all, that payoff needs to feel like, wow. And here, it felt like a simple game with a whole lot of extra rules thrown in. Don't get me wrong, a lot of beautiful pieces are moving around the board. You have that big builder and this trader elephant, and you have these pieces that are all over the place that stand for different resources, and you're collecting them and going for this. But then there's a rolling of a die, and the next offer that's made is one that you weren't planning for it to be at. And yes, sure, you're supposed to be able to roll with that sort of punch, but how, this is a game that there's a lot of buildup into different things. And so there's player interaction, of course, because you're kicking other people's workers out. The person before you is going to take the meditation spot that you want it to go to, or they're going to deliver an order before you, or you're fighting over who controls the card. So there's that player interaction, but it's not as interesting as I would like it to be. Now, I'm kind of bagging on this game a little bit, and I don't mean to be, because this game involves a lot of things I like. I like putting out a worker. I like when you put out a worker, it displaces someone else. I like the board where you're moving up the tracks and there's different things to deliver. But the whole overwhelming feel of, what are you going to do? Okay, that's interesting. But what are you going to do ends up kind of being similar choices. And while the farmer moving around is an interesting little puzzle, how many resources you get, it's also fiddly, and you're sitting there counting all the time, and then the same tokens are being used as resources for everything, which can occasionally be confusing. But to me, the biggest confusion just is the fact that there's favor points, meditation points, and how do you win the game? It's with that money, and who's winning. Definitely not my style of game. But even if it was my style of game, and again, I'm not opposed to these big worker placement games. I like this sort of thing. I'm not sure it's a lot of people's style. I feel like there's a lot of games that are deeper and more fulfilling. I mean, I've heard a lot of good things about Lisboa and things like that this year. And this one, even with those same crowds, doesn't seem to hold up. So you may like it, and it certainly is a gorgeous game to set up on the table, but it's one I'm going to pass on. Dice Tower Judgment, overwrought.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door.